Hi, everyone. This is Oph, and you are watching Simply SCAdian, no title required. And today's show is has this has nothing to do with the show, but Zoom is how we connected truly with Master Toki Redbeard, who was one of my dearest friends, and I roped Lucas into some fun Zoom shenanigans with Lucas and a couple other people, with Toki and a couple other people, and the known world has a great loss. We've lost Master Toki. He passed away Monday night. So we just want to remember Toki and all he did to use Zoom when COVID started. So Toki, here's to you. See you in the next life. Valhalla's halls. All right. I'm going to hand it off to Lucas while I do geek girl stuff. Take it away.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Simply SCAdian, no title required. As always, our mission is to bring you people who are just regular folks making it and breaking it in the SCA today from all over the known world. So, before I get into introducing tonight's very special guest, I would like to again issue my challenge as I do every week. I hope you're out there in the great ether taking my challenge seriously. We need people for the show. You know the type of people we need. We want the worker bee. All right. And that doesn't matter what they do, what they're working at. Are they a marshal and working in something like fencing or heavy or archery or something like that? We would love to talk to them. Are they into A&S? Are they making stuff? Scholarship. We have had some of the best shows in the last couple weeks when it comes to scholarship, things we never knew, and the deep dive that people are going on out there is amazing. So before I keep going with this, everybody keep up the good work because you're doing phenomenal work out there in the SCA. So keep doing that. But then tell us about it. That's what we want. So you know what people are working on. You know who we should talk to. Reach out to us, hit that Facebook page, fill out the form, and look us up. We would love to hear about the people in your corner of the known world. Speaking of corner of the known worlds, season 5, I put it out there. Still, no one's taking the bait. I want somebody from across the pond. Okay, I want one of our brothers and sisters over in Europe, over in Australia, over anywhere that we can get them. We know you're out there. We want you to be heard too. We'll figure out the time thing. Okay. And we'll do it for you guys. But you have to introduce us to those folks. Try and find somebody for us. We would love that. But right here in River City, I have to say honestly, I meet a lot of people from the mid realm, which I am not. I am from the east. And tonight I have somebody from my corner of the world, somebody who I think y'all are going to love talking to today. So let's introduce Brogain O'Riain, and he has been in the SCA since 2001 in the canton of Griffinwald in the barony of Setmore Swamp. Personas 10th century, hails from the Isle of Man, so as he put it, a Viking through and through. This is why I want this guy on the show, because I'm telling you right now, I just called him a Swiss Army SCA guy. His interest ranged from Bardic, which he won my Bardic competition, Bardic to brewing, archery to A&S, and an eye always on service. And I know we're going to get into a lot of that today. Brogan, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, welcome.
So I'm just now realizing that we talked about the set questions, but we never actually told you. So it's a good thing that
Oh,
you've seen the show before, Brogan.
no, I did tell him the questions. You
Oh yeah,
walked away to go do stuff. I
Okay.
did my job while you were walking away. See, you don't have to
RJ's
tell me
got it.
it.
Here's
Everyone in my defense, it only took me 4.5 seasons for her to stop telling me to do my job. Just
that was only because I walked away from the computer. All right. So Brogan, how did you find the SCA?
So in goodness, must have been late 2000. Um, I went to or 2001, went to Mudthaw 21, under Baron Eric. I believe it was Baron Eric's last Mudthaw, and tensions were running high, and it was super exciting. I worked in the kitchen with Eric and had some incredible lamb, and then served not high table, but served one of the royal tables. And I served a guy from the mid realm, um, whose name escapes me now, 24 years later. And it was an amazing experience. Everybody made me feel super welcome. I was brought in by Pippin Thier and Finnabar from our local barony, and they're two of my best friends, and it's been a wild 24 years since.
So then, where then did your interest in something like the SA come from? Were you friends with those guys and they were like, hey, we do this cool thing? Or were you into like the whole we talk about like what are the different gateway paths? Like I'm a Ren Fair guy and I found the SCA through doing Ren Fair. Some people just love,
Yeah, so
the medieval thing.
we had been doing RPG cons and like Dex Con, some of the local like kind of gaming convention scenes for years prior. Um, and Pippin had been in the SCA forever, for a couple of years before even I met him. And so he went to Quest every year, and I'd driven him and Kristen to Quest several times, Finnabar to Quest. Um, and was like, "Hey, what is this crazy thing that you do?" And so the next event was Mud Thaw, and he was like, "Dude, come hang out at Mud Thaw. It's like I think the event was like $10, and you work in the kitchen, and you'll eat for free because you're working." And never left since. I met a million, Quinn and Orvarg and Kuthbod and all the rest of House Bathier and c'est la vie.
Hmm.
So what is it about the SCA that's kept you?
I think more than anything else, just really the camaraderie and the fact that it lets you, as a history nerd all growing up, um, it has let me kind of explore different parts of history that interest me that I would probably be looking into anyways. And this kind of what I like about the SCA is it kind of gives you a framework for your history nerd, as opposed to just being kind of a lonely, quiet guy with a bookshelf of, history books. You have a group of people that you can go and talk to who are hopefully can find some parallel interest in a range of different topics.
So what was that first big interest for you? I mean, you talked about the kitchens a couple times. So, again, for
I
our
mean, a
listeners,
big piece of it was service. It was borrowing clothes, trying to kind of slowly figure out a persona. But again, it was more so than anything really scholarly. It was a place to go, and it was what my friends were doing, so it was a place to go hang out with my friends. And that's, I think, why the service piece of it is so big for me, because so many people made it a welcoming environment for me that it wasn't, oh, I have some great A&S scholarly pursuit, or I'm going to get, hard into fighting and I want to be a knight, or anything along those lines. It was, hey, this is where I go and hang out with my friends. In order to make that happen, somebody's got to wash the dishes at the end of the night. Somebody's got to sweep the floors. I don't mind doing that. I've worked food service my whole life. So, let's do what we can do and try to help out and run stuff, because this is how I get to hang out with my friends. This is, the like I say in my bio, like this is my dream. Like this is the dream, is making this place where all of us can sit around and nerd out. And, only as of late have I been diving into more specific topics, really.
So what's you listed a couple in your bio, but so let's take them one by one. Let's talk about brewing. What got you into brewing?
So I'll be honest, several conversations I had, in the past maybe 4 or 5 years with, meeting some of the guys out of Bacale and finding a couple of the brewers in Setmore Swamp. I didn't realize how easy and accessible it was. And I'm not a beer drinker, so I didn't realize brewing mead was, I'll say easy, but as accessible is really the word I'm looking for, that you can try to achieve this at home. Um, and so being able to kind of pursue some of that after having some conversations with Marcus and um, Philippe is a big brewer, Kuthbad's a big brewer, and having some of these conversations, some of the guys down in Bacale, and realizing like, oh, hey, I can go to a brewing store and I can buy some honey and I can get some yeast and I can get some fresh water and boom, I'm on the road to making mead. Okay, and now how do I do that research? Let me, and that's where talking to people like Karis, in terms of being able to have somebody guide the research of it, of like, hey, what are the historical recipes? What are, historical ingredients? How do you find that? Where do you find that information? How do you find those recipes? It's been an interesting ride in terms of brewing, n- kind of figuring out how accessible some of these things are. Same thing with Bardic is a good example. So I was at Penzic 6, 7 years ago, maybe. And Donnan had written a thing, and it was awesome and it inspired me. He read it for the whole group one night around the fire, and he read it for the whole group, and it inspired me. And I wrote kind of a counterpoint piece. Um, and I performed it the a couple days later around the fire at Penzic, and everybody liked it. But I hadn't realized that Bardic was that accessible. Like, oh, you can like be inspired and write a thing, and you just did Bardic. Like, and I'm not a singer. I am not an actor. I am not, I've done a lot of like the tech theater side of stuff, but being inspired by that, really kind of got me interested, and the incredible support of Donnan has been amazing. And heck yeah, my significant other, the two of them just being like rah rah rah, has pushed me into research. I did for your Bardic competition, I did a broadsheet. Oh, I always get the time period wrong, but an Elizabethan broadsheet for my entry. And so I researched what a broadsheet was and how it was done, and down to like, hey, these are the fonts that were used in that period. So this is the font, printed it out with the font that would have been in that time period. Like, it's that kind of, in cooking, you call it kind of hoof to snout, that I'm gonna try to figure out how to make the paper so it's on the same paper that it was made in, and that uses the same fonts, and this is the format, and this is how they did it, and this is how they were distributed. Like, that really kind of ultra deep dive, especially when it comes to kind of some of the pieces of Bardic really interest me. And the same thing with brewing. Like, you can go so deep on some of these topics with some of the other amazing scholars that the SCA has produced.
Now, doesn't the East Kingdom have a Brewers Guild?
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Have you ever hung out with those guys? No,
I've not.
that's okay. You don't have to.
But again, that's I think kind of my next evolution of SCA, and that's kind of what, like, I um uh recently became protege is service. I always forget.
Protege is service, yeah.
So I recently became Karis' protege for service because I've been serving for so long in the SCA that it would be nice to have some guidance in that process, you know, realizing there's a Brewers Guild. Okay, so how do you get in touch with them? How do you kind of, is that, I think that's kind of my next piece, is moving away from just, hey, I show up, I hang out with my friends, we do some cool stuff, I get involved in some interesting things. I work a couple of door shifts, I clean up in the kitchen, and everybody goes home, to, hey, let's see what it's like to kind of take this a little more seriously and kind of pursue it as the hobby it's meant to be.
Well, I mean, I
Wait. For some people, it's meant to be,
Yeah, oh, 100%.
right? You know, like
100%.
there's some Scadians, like my son, when he was really little, we went to an event and he was like so mad. He was like, all you do is sit around and talk to people and knit. And
Yeah.
I was like, do you want me to start doing archery? Do you want me to start, I mean, we walk around the event, but for me, it's sitting around with my friends knitting until the Bardic Circle at night. Then I'm on fire, right?
Yeah.
But for some people, the scholarship is really cool and really huge. Some people, they just don't care, and that's okay.
100%. And I think, again, I don't necessarily think it's from necessarily the scholarship perspective, but so much seeing what systems are out there so you're not reinventing the wheel. So maybe not, again, kind of to walk back what I said, not necessarily how it was meant to be, but utilizing the systems that are in place to help you along the way. Because, 'cause I have this love affair with like, let's invent it from the beginning. And, it's like, oh wait, somebody already hashed this trail. Let's maybe try to follow somebody else's trail
Yeah, well,
for a
you have
change.
Malowan from Bacale,
Oh
who's a
my
big
God, yeah.
doer.
That guy is
Master Malowan is a great resource for you. So,
100%. Yeah, he introduced me to a whole bunch of people whose names I apologize escape me at the moment, but he introduced me to some people that really helped my brewing, and we're just like, hey, here's some pointers on how to do ciders. Here's some pointers on mead making, and we're able to kind of impart such information. And that's the cool part about the SCA is like people are so willing to just give away such insane information, like uh I guess a couple of years ago, so 4 years ago, pre-pandemic, 5 years ago, I spent a Penzic and I was like, I'm just going to ask everybody what their persona is. Just talk to me about your persona. And it was crazy. Like people had huge blocks of information that I would have never known. And I talked to people who I've never met before, people who I knew, and they just info dumped in the best way. Ko gave me a 45-minute conversation on the clothes of Japan and how they work and how they fit and with the suit that he had on. And it was enthralling. I would have paid money for that talk. Like, so it's awesome to have these conversations to just be like, hey, what's your persona? And people have done so much homework and so deep and hey, there's this and that, and this is the accent, and this is where the clothes come from, and these ribbons, and
right. There's actually a group that we were introduced to, um, the SCA Persona Workshop on Facebook. And they constantly are just asking questions about personas.
that's cool.
So if anybody's interested, they should go there. All right, Eric, you had a question. Go ahead.
well, no, I was going to say, don't I think you're undercutting yourself just a little bit because like you've done, I think more than what you're giving yourself credit for. But it's currently you manage the canton, right? I mean, like that's
Yeah,
your
so I'm Canton Seneschal. I've been Baronial Exchequer. I've been Canton Exchequer. Um, yeah, I've bounced around for a while there.
which
I took a couple of years off out of officer positions, and I'm back and doing chronicler currently for the barony. So
Well, good for you, Exchequer. Whoo, wouldn't want that job.
yeah,
No, thank
never in this
you.
life, no,
Never.
no money. So I mean, like, how is that? I mean, the canton is I mean, it's relatively small, but how has that been being a
so it's so
senator?
interesting. Yeah, so it's so interesting. The canton has been, I mean, honestly, part of my life since 2004. Um, when Ragnar was a big proponent of Canton of Griffenwald, and he was a huge icon of the Canton for years and years and years. He stepped away for some health reasons, and Pippin and Pippin was kind of tapped to take it over, and he talked to me, and Eva and a couple of other people, and so we stepped in and kind of kept the Canton going, and we've kept the Canton going for 20 something years now. It's always been tiny, but it's always been, mighty. We put on BGI every year. We've got our
BGI.
BGI.
What's BGI?
Oh, sorry. Black Griffin Inn is the Canton's yearly event. Um, it'll be April 12th this year. This is the 28th, I want to say. Um, it's been going forever. And we have a great turnout. It's a super chill kind of tavern event. Or Lucas was amazing and ran it for us one year with the help of his significant other, whose SCA name I don't know off the top of my head.
Fiona.
Fiona,
Fiona.
thank you.
Yeah.
Look, I said Phoebe.
Um,
What worst Laurel ever? Fiona.
and Fiona did the food for us, which was amazing. Um, and it's a great, super chill first time event. It's we try to kind of position it as like a starter event for people to get their feet wet in because a lot of the Barony events are so big now. Mudthaw's 800 people, sometimes 200-person feast.
Well,
You
Mudthaw,
know,
I mean,
uh,
let me just clarify. So Mudthaw is actually us host. It's our event, but we're hosting an EK event
yeah,
basically. You know what I mean? Like there's Kingdom Court and whatnot. So we get people from all over there. Where the beauty of BGI is that it's not even a martial event. There's no
nope.
fencing or fighting at it. It is literally, like you said, a tavern event. So there's a bardic competition. That's where the barony has kind of placed their bardic competition. And it's a great like feast centric kind of thing. A lot of sitting around and talking with your friends.
Yeah,
It has a brewing comp at it, and then
an ANS competition,
and the
and
ANF competition, I think, is one of the best ideas ever. It's a works in progress ANS competition. So you don't need a finished product. We're like, come and show us what you're working on. So it takes that intimidation factor of having all of your, T's crossed and I's dotted and all that kind of stuff.
it has the most entries for a tiny ANS competition. It has the most entries. Bjarni's idea to do that was incredible. Bjarni is
Yeah.
such an asset to the Canton and the SCA. It's just awe-inspiring. Um, but yeah, and it was funny for years. People fought us. They're like, "Oh, you have to have fencing there. You have to have heavy there. You have to have, this, that, and the next thing." And we couldn't. There's no space around us to be able to do any of that. And so we were just like, "No, It's the original plan is to keep it a tavern event. It's the Baronial Bardic Championship. So we have the Baronial Bardic Championship there every year." And it is the feedback that we get every year, we usually have about 100 people. In the past couple of years, we've gotten it up to about 100 people an event. And yeah, the feedback we constantly get is, hey, this is the most chill, relaxed, like easygoing.
Let's
Because a
hope
lot of the
they come
fighters
out
like show
one
up in an
year.
event and they've just got to run, like.
Right.
So it's nice for them to be able to like just have a relaxed time.
Well, hopefully I can come out one year.
Oh,
Now
we'd love
that
to have you.
Oh yeah. Now that it leads me to a next question. So I don't know if it's your house or if it's Griffinwald or what, but something else happens at BGI that you guys have kind of run with, and it is even referenced in the photo that you provided us with, which is Coob.
Oh, Coob, yeah.
Talk about Coob and how
Oh,
you guys
Lord
have kind of,
Renwick, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The great bringer of Coob. Yeah. So Lord Renwick brought us Coob, man, 7 years ago, maybe at this point.
Mhm.
And I guess it's a traditional game. I don't know. I think it is technically just outside of period in terms of its documentation. But there are period games that still kind of fall into that same category, so it's right on the edge there. Um, but yeah, no, it's fabulous. Everybody loves it. Generally, there's a lot of kind of free play cube going on. It's a great place to learn it. There are generally then cube tournaments that he runs at Mudthaw
Quest.
every year, Baronial, Mudthaw, and Quest.
Wait,
Um,
wait, wait, time out. What is Coob?
Oh, okay. So Cube is field. It's so universal out here. I apologize. So Cube is a field game that's played. It's a Scandinavian field game. There are two sets of five blocks played on opposing sides of a field, and then there's a king in the center. And teams try to, with sticks, knock down the opposing um, side's pegs or blocks, finishing off the king in the finale. Um, yeah, it's obviously a rabbit stick kind of teaching tool, or what would have been a rabbit stick teaching tool in kind of primitive cultures. Um, in terms of like kind of younger people hunting practices and stuff like that. So, but yeah, and it's a great game in Scandinavia. It is hyper competitive, and there are some really complicated rules associated with it. We play it a little more relaxed. So,
Nice. All right, I have a question for you. So you mentioned the Pensick that you walked around asking everybody about their persona. And your persona is from the Isle of Man, which
mhm.
is someplace I've always wanted to go. Like it's ever since I heard of it, I've dreamed of going to Isle of Man. Tell me about your persona and what put you on the Isle of Man.
So, my persona I come to from a pretty shameful standpoint. So originally my persona was going to be from Fez, because the clothes are comfortable, airy, and not hot. And I then, after doing a bit of research on Fez, figured out that there is no way in God's green earth I could figure out how to do any of those clothes. So I changed over to Isle of Man because it allowed me to, since the way they, especially in the, kind of 10th century, the way they were trading, with the kind of different colonies around them, the Irish Vikings. You had the kind of Irish kings were just about to be crowned in the kind of next 50 or 100 years. And the invasions in England and Scotland, figured it kind of allow me to cherry pick from the region in terms of clothes, especially the wonderful Irish Lena, which for all intents and purposes is a sleeping gown. And so, as a very poor kind of Irish immigrant to the Isle of Man, because there's a couple of well-researched grave finds from the Isle of Man, and there's some history there, but the majority of it is not really like material culture history. There's one kind of famous one, and it's of a woman, and she has like a big, beautiful necklace, and that's kind of one of the famous necklaces, kind of from that era. But for the most part, it was kind of researching what people would have been doing in that era. And so the penny presses came over from Ireland to the Isle of Man. And so they had brought one of the penny presses over, um, the Viking penny presses. And so kind of that was my thought, was I could wear just big, kind of flowy, comfortable clothes that would not be too hot in a Pensick summer, you know?
Yeah.
So
The
smart.
thought of doing velvet Elizabethan makes my skin crawl.
That's where I live, and I.
Yeah, one day I will hopefully, but my sewing skills are nowhere near that, and I can make a Lena.
So you brought up something, and I'm gonna out you a little bit. You brought up a necklace,
Mhm.
and you also work in jewelry as
I
a.
so I do. So I do some chains, for some people. and it's a lot of fun. But it's interesting because I always kind of want to pause people whenever they say that, like, I work in jewelry.
Okay.
I make pretty stuff, and in theory, a fair bit of it is period. You can look at some of the paintings of the time, and people have these kind of simple gold necklaces on. The actual jewelry of the time, though, is mind-boggling. When you look at like 10th century um jewelry of the time that isn't necessarily like hack silver where it's, oh, I've got a couple of rings around my arm and hey, I need, kind of food money kind of thing. Um, when you look at the actual jewelry at the time with pearls and diamonds, only a couple of 100 years later were all of the English uh, royal jewels. All of those insane royal jewels, yeah, those were only made in like the 11th or 12th century. Like those aren't that old. So, the level of work of jewelers, true jewelers of that time is awe-inspiring. Um, I make some fun chains, and like I said, there is some argument for them to be in period. But to be called a jeweler is I can't, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
that's
I just wanted to be known that you also, I mean, again, jack of all trades. I mean, it's something else that you were interested in that you kind of were like, all right, I'll learn how to do that.
but I think that's what pulls me to the SCA in so many ways, as opposed to other places. Because in the SCA, I can spend 6 months or a year doing chains and researching the history of those, and then I can spend the next 6 months to a year figuring out the history of salt. And I can then spend 6 months or a year or 20 years refining my persona, and figuring out, hey, ninth century, 10th century, 12th, okay, let's tighten it up a little bit, and I think that's you can skip around. We've got in a year, we've got uh oh goodness, where you wear the masks, Mardi Gras.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, are the God. Now
right? The word is
I
just
want to say
completely gone.
carnival, but that's not it.
Carnival. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's
no, it
carnival.
is.
It's
Okay.
carnival. So we've got a carnival event coming up in about a year. It's going to be super immersive. Um, Marcus talked to me about doing the site tokens, Venetian, sorry.
Venetia.
And so I've been researching how to make paper, and the Venetians, as it turns out, are the progenitors of watermarks in paper. And so all of this paper would have been long staple rag linen paper that you use that because the shorter fibers make a weaker paper. So you take old clothes and you mush them up and you turn that into your paper because it's got the long staples that are used to make thread and fiber. So there's so much to learn, and I'm doing a token for one event, and researching how that's done and the way that they do, the way that they make it and all of that type of stuff, and being able to dig deep dive into that. And then, 2 weeks from now, it might be, oh, let me figure out how to brew this 1,000-year-old recipe on how to brew an apple cider, or an orange drink.
Well, I mean, do you think, and again, Zoph, you can chime in on this too. Do you think that that's sort of a misnomer, a myth, or a passe thing in the SCA in general? That if you were going to join the SCA, you're a fighter, or you're a bardic, or you're a this. Where I think a lot of the modern people who are working the SCA really don't feel clearly defined by anything. They're just like, this seems like fun, and I'm going to do this.
I would 100% agree. I would 100% agree. I mean, if you look at just some of the people I know, a perfect example, uh, Jonathan is a perfect example. Like he's a fighter. He's a former baron. He's got like the service element to it. He's chivalry, and the guy makes armor, like makes art out of metal. Like,
Hmm.
Donnan is a great example. Donnan's a knight, so he's got the service piece of it, he's got the fighting piece of it, and he's this incredibly accomplished bardic person. Like, so it's so cool to see all of these people who, when you first meet them, you're like, okay, I kind of pigeon you're an arts and science person, or a pigeon, and you find out, um, I apologize. I can't remember Linda Feeney's SCA name. Has a bloody tower from fighting. Like, like it's so awe-inspiring the number of, you know, laurels I meet who are like, oh yeah, and when I was doing rapier 20 years ago, it was a blast. Like, or hey, I'm a throwing weapons. This iron tower I have is for throwing weapons, and you're like, what? That's insane. Like, you also have an ivory, you've been recognized for your artistry, and you throw axes good. Like, so
Well, I mean, throwing weapons is really fun. I
a
that
hundred
that's where if
percent.
I'm not sitting around talking with people, I'm over throwing daggers at a log.
But that's the whole thing. And so like it's so funny how because again, as a human being, you kind of innately want to categorize things, and so it's insane as you talk to people. And that's the thing, is just I think it's just talk to as many people as you can, at events. Go be the first person to go over and say hi. Be the first person to, welcome somebody to the event. Go introduce yourself to people you don't know, when you're sitting around in a giant mud hall. You're sitting around at a 200 person feast, and go sit down and say hi to somebody new, because you never know who you're going to meet. You and I, how many years did we float around each other
Hmm.
having never met before, and we have so
And my,
much in common, and love each other.
and then yeah, and my first real event was Champions, which we did after the world was allowed to meet again.
Mm,
And I went out and I did all the things because the Baroness made me.
yeah,
She was
fair.
like, "You brought your swords, right?" I said, "Yes." She's like, "Go fence." She's like, "You got your archery equipment." She's like, "The archery tournament's in 10 minutes. Go sign up." You know what I mean? She kept doing everything. And then the Baron and Baroness came over and they were like, "You're going to call court today." And I was like, "I'm going to do the what now?" And that was like my first, like Penzig is an
Yeah,
event, but Penzig is a no, like you don't have to see any of the official
yeah.
how the sausage is made at Penzig if you don't want to. You can sit in a lawn chair and drink beer for 3 weeks. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like if that's what your flavor is. And I just from that alone, where she kept pushing me out front, it was just like, oh, all right, you know what I mean? And then that's where I feel like I don't, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love doing the Herald. I
Yeah,
it's
you're really good at it. Please keep
thank you.
doing it.
But I mean, it's what I want to do if I'm going to one of our
Yeah.
events. You know what I mean? But I was a fencer 100 years ago, and then my leg stopped working, and but I don't feel clear. I don't feel defined by it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
and that
oh,
whole thing is like, again, for years I was sit in a lawn chair and drink beer kind of guy. And it was, I kind of got a persona. I still don't have a registered name. I still don't have a device. Like, it is what it is. But you show up and you help out and you have fun and you meet people and you relax. And I'm kind of having fun goofing off and doing some more of the like kind of official stuff now, but like whatever, just meet people and have a blast. Like there's so many cool people out there, and they so outnumber the not cool people out there. Like just and be a huge booster of people. Like I cannot express Donnan's enthusiasm for the Bardic piece I wrote. I would have never ever thought that that was something that I would get into, and now I'm like for this year's Bardic competition. Like, okay, how am I gonna write my own piece? Okay, but I've got to rehearse it more because my last performance was terrible. It was not a great performance, but the piece was really good. Like, and it's figuring out like, okay, how do I get my performance better? Like, and it figuring out having somebody to encourage that. So find people who are trying new things and just booster the heck out of them, and just keep doing it because it's so important,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
what we try to do on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let me ask you something. I also think that is a, I don't know, happy accident or what of the people that you surround yourself with. And you've talked about Bathier a little bit. So that's your house. So talk about House Bathier, how that all got wrong, how and like what kinds of people are in that, because it's not a Marshall house, or maybe it started that way.
I
I
mean,
don't.
so it's I don't I'll be honest, it certainly wasn't started, I don't believe, as a Marshall House. Yeah, so it was started by three cool hip and happening dudes a million years ago. And a million years later I joined it. Exact dates, I have no clue. And yeah, and so it's a great reason to sit around and hang out. Everybody's really nice. It's certainly got a little bit of probably a reputation in the SCA for being kind of loud. And but one of the main things that we do is we pride ourselves on service. We have knights, we have laurels, we have pelicans in our number. We have a lot of great former seneschals and exchequers, and a lot of people that kind of help make the dream happen. Heck yeah is a great example of that. Heck yeah is served in some fashion in every single kitchen at every single event they've ever been to, except like three, maybe.
Okay. Okay.
So like some of the people that we have are the people that make that dream happen for everybody else,
Hmm.
and that's what we really pride ourselves on, is our ability to pull together and pull out some great events and help out people, you know.
Hmm.
Do we have any comments on the Facebook page, Lucas?
We don't. We just people are quiet today, and I'm trying to make sure my computer doesn't die. Excuse me, like right here at the end.
No.
Yeah, it just gave me the battery. Everything got dark momentarily, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then it said battery saver. All right. No, I mean, Rum
I will
Runner.
say, because I will be remiss and yelled at if I don't mention it. Also, House Fitzgerald is an amazing house, and they too have a long and storied history. As it turns out, a maritime history that I
Mhm.
did not know too much about, and so yeah, hats my hat off to House Fitzgerald as
Yeah,
well.
for being a landlocked barony whose major export and import is mud, there's a lot of boats. We got.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was the crazy part, is finding out all the pirates were in, three-quarters of the pirates are,
Oh yeah,
you know,
that if you know,
in the barony of Setmore Swamp, and you're like,
Yeah,
wait,
Raven
what?
Spittle is centered almost
These are
exclusively
all
in,
Canton people?
yeah, a lot of them, you know, even before I was with them. I mean, it was started by people from Central Jersey,
Yeah, yeah.
which is right in the middle of all that. Yeah, and I keep reminding them that, like, they can come and do this stuff and it's fun, and they don't just have to do Penzing. There are other
Yeah,
things
yeah.
out there, and I've gotten more and more to actually come out to
Oh,
Quest. It's,
100%. Oh, it's so cool.
yeah, um, but
All
yeah.
right. Did you have any more questions, Lucas?
No, I'm good. I'm except to say, see, you were very nervous and you nerded out and you went on some deep dives and
I
you
wasn't
know.
nervous. I don't know what you're talking about. You're nervous.
He's nervous every time. It's okay.
I am.
All right. Brogan, so what is one thing the SCA can do better? or multiple things the SCA can do better.
Yeah.
So the one thing I think I will say is I think our populace could do better with recognition. I think the populace needs to get out there and needs to write more people's names in for more awards. Um, it is shocking how often I think the baronies and the cantons and the kingdom and et cetera, are kind of admonished for not giving out enough awards. And that's because we're not writing enough people in. And I would charge your audience and yourself and other people to go submit an awards recommendation because there are at least one, if not five people you know who have done tremendous work who go unsung.
Yeah.
And I think again and again and again, it is so important to recognize people for their hard work. And we have people who have been helping out here and there as much as they can for 15 years, and they don't have an AOA, and they don't have a silver wheel, and they don't have, and I think getting that recognition for people at the baronial level, at the canton level, as much as we can, at the kingdom level, just again and again and again, write people in, go there, sing other people's praises, because so many people, so many more people deserve recognition than are getting.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has really been a fun show. Thank you.
Thank you. This
Yeah.
has been awesome. I really appreciate both of you, and please keep it up. This show is great.
Awesome. All right. You have been watching Simply Scadian, no title required. We will be back in 2 weeks. Thank you again to Brogan O'Riain. Did I say it right?
Yep.
Wow, go me. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Have a great night.